And welcome back to the Sportsnaut interview. And today we are joined by Zack Pearson, who covers the Bears for BearReport.com, part of the 24/7 network. And Zack, we're happy to have you joining us. Thanks so much for the time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk some football.
You know, Zack, it was quite the finish that we saw in Washington over the weekend on Sunday. Not the finish that Bears fans wanted, but I want to ask you about that. I think what we saw on Sunday in that loss was some of the larger issues that may have been highlighted for the Bears. Let's first start with coaching. You know, the Bears, they had a dismal performance on offense. The defense had lapses at times. There were they were penalized 8 times in the game as well, and there were some decisions by the coaches, particularly on that Hail Mary play, or just before it, I should say, that have been called into question. You know, and this all comes following the bye week for the Bears. And, you know, most times when teams come off the bye week, they've had a chance to do some self-scouting and to try to clean up some of those loose ends. You know, and going into the season, you think about coaches that were on the list of coaches who were on the hot seat. I think Matt Eberflus falls into that category. We're now 7 games into the year, and I don't think, and this is just my opinion, but I don't think he's done enough to change the minds of a lot of his critics that are out there. So I just want to get some of your opinion on where Matt Eberflus currently stands as the head coach of this football team.
Yeah, you know, last year when they, blew the lead to Denver, they blew a lead to Detroit. They probably should have won that Cleveland game. I was kind of like, you know what, I just, you're going to have the number 1 pick. Or you're going to have number 1 or 2. You're probably going to take a quarterback. You're probably going to move on from Justin Fields. Now is a good time to kind of just reset, find a coach that you can, partner them with and have that long-term marriage. And then I thought, well, the Bears have done this before. They took Mitch Trubisky and then fired John Fox a year after that. They took Justin Fields and fired Matt Nagy a year after that. So, will they do the same thing here? I don't know. For me, I think it's playoffs or bust for Matt Eberflus. Ryan Poles, he loves Matt Eberflus. They have a good relationship. He decided to keep him instead of, trying to find a new head coaching candidate. And, you get, Ben Johnson stays in Detroit. That probably would have been a top guy that I would have gone after if I were the Bears. Cliff Kingsbury was interviewed for the offensive coordinator position. I'm sure if the Bears move on, he'd be the easy connection. But as far as Matt Eberflus, I think this is kind of the stuff that we've seen. I like to throw that first year partially out the window. They needed a tank. They needed to lose games. They needed to get that number 1 pick. But at the same time, there were still coaching mistakes he was making while tanking that you don't have to make in order to tank. And then we saw those kind of go into year 2. And now you're seeing him in year 3, and it's kind of like, he's a really good defensive coordinator. He's a guy that has a defense playing well. But as far as coaching, there's his, same mistakes. He's been pretty bad on challenge decisions this year. The decision to only rush 3, have a, spy or TJ Edwards on the running back in the Hail Mary was crazy to me. And even the bigger one, in my opinion, was the play right before where they allowed 13 yards for free. I mean, it was just here, take 13 yards and set up the Hail Mary. And he doubled down on that on Monday, saying that they were playing the Hail Mary and that he, it would have been a 70-yard Hail Mary, nothing against Jaden Daniels, but it landed short from 52? Probably would have landed short from 70 as well. So It's just the coaching decisions that leave you kind of wondering, like, what's going on with him. And, I would say they start losing some games. I think he'll be on the hot seat. I don't think he's on the hot seat just yet. But if this thing goes downhill and they spiral, I think there's probably going to be a change eventually.
Yeah. Now I want to take a look on the other side of this for the fans, the Bears fans out there that are more optimistic, that like to, look for the positive and everything, the silver lining. I guess you could look at this past game with the Commanders and say, the Bears trailed for, I believe it was 59 minutes and 37 seconds in the game, but they showed a lot of grit there towards the end in the second half or the fourth quarter. They fought back. And if it were not for a miracle Hail Mary play then they could have won this game against the Commanders team, who is 6-2 right now, playing really well, leading the NFC East division. So am I being a little bit too critical, and maybe this was just a bump in the road for the Bears?
I mean, their defense, this is what it's pretty much been all season, is their defense has been fantastic. Like, they have a legit top 5 defense. I think they can have a top 3 or top defense eventually by the end of the season. And, you said they trailed, but they were never out of it by more than 2 scores. And at any point, 2 touchdowns would have won them the game, essentially. So it obviously didn't, but, or take the lead there. They did a good job on Jaden Daniels. And yeah, Jaden Daniels, he had the rib injury. He was still making really good throws, and he wasn't helped by some drops. But the Bears overall, they played him pretty well, except for a couple times when he escaped out of the pocket. They held him to 4 field goals, 5 attempts on field goals. They gave their team a chance to win. Take out that Hail Mary play and the play before on defense, and they played really well. Offensively, can't really say the same thing. Caleb Williams probably wasn't his best game. I don't think it was his worst game. I think the Tennessee game was by far worse. And, you look at the primetime game against Houston, he was, up and down. I think he was a little jittery. I think, the moment was just, okay, like, I'm back home. I'm going up against number 2 pick, Jaden Daniels. I want to prove something. And you could see by a couple overthrows that the past 3 weeks, he wasn't overthrowing much. I mean, he was fantastic in those past 3 games. So I don't think you're, too critical or anything like that. I think that they have a legit defense. I think they have an offense that's getting better. And I think Caleb Williams is getting better. They just have a coaching staff where some questionable decisions at times. And, you look at Shane Waldron, they called a play against the Colts a couple weeks ago, a reverse on 4th and goal that lost like 12 yards. And you thought, oh God, they got to learn from this. And we thought they did. And then they call a run to the backup center. So it's just, this is kind of the things that are just, irritating Bears fans and leaving us in the media. Like, what's going on? Like, what do they see that, we don't?
Yeah, speaking of Shane Waldron, do you think that he's been good for Caleb Williams as far as Williams' development goes? I mean, it's still very early on, 7 games in, but it's been a little up and down for Williams, as it would be for most rookie quarterbacks. But unlike most rookie quarterbacks, Williams has been surrounded by a ton of weapons. I mean, this offense, when you look at it on paper, is as good as any in NFL. And so, again, you have to look at maybe the coordinator. Has he done good enough for Williams to put him in position to be successful?
I do think he's done a good job. They started off the season kind of struggling on offense against Tennessee. They struggled against Houston. The Houston game was another game where their defense, just played fantastic and didn't, I think they allowed 17 points, which should be enough in this NFL to win. And their offense just couldn't catch up. They had a 3-game stretch where their offense looked really good, and Waldron kind of had things cooking. He looked like he was comfortable. He looked like he was in a rhythm. Same goes with Caleb Williams. But we have to keep in mind, those 3 games were against the Rams, the Panthers, and the Jaguars, 3 of the worst defenses in the NFL. Commanders' defense, going into this game, their pass defense I didn't think was very good. I thought they had a good defense. Bobby Wagner's playing out of his mind. They lost a couple of guys up front, but this was another bad one for Shane Waldron. So it's kind of just been hit or miss. He's had stretches of bad. He's had stretches of good. I think when they're at their best is when he's getting that run game going with DeAndre Swift. And we kind of saw that in the second half. Swift in the first 3 weeks, I think he had like 63 total rushing yards. Since then, in 4 games, I think he's over 370 or something like that. And he's been really good, averaging about 5.2 yards per carry in the last 4 games. So if Waldron can get that run game going, it takes a lot of pressure off Caleb Williams. And you're right. I mean, they have the weapons. Keenan Allen's he was a bit banged up, but he's starting to get healthy and play well. I think they got to get Rome Odunze more involved. And we saw that a little bit in the second half against Washington. A couple quick throws. I think he took like a pitch or a reverse as well. When he has the ball in his hands, he's really good. And we just haven't seen that as much this year. The yak or getting him out into space, things like that. I think they got to incorporate that a little bit more. And also a factor with Waldron is they're banged up on the offensive line. They have just not been consistent on the offensive line. So that doesn't help as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely a big part of the problem would be the offensive line. Now, I want to look ahead a little bit for the Bears. They're 4-3 right now. And they have yet to play a division game, which in that division could be a bad thing because the division is so good.
Yeah.
But still plenty of opportunities for the Bears to, make a push for the playoffs. Currently, they're the 8th spot right now, so just outside the playoff picture. But they have 2 winnable games coming up starting this week at Arizona, followed by New England before 3 straight division games. How crucial is it for the Bears to, over the next 2 weeks here, get things back on track as they prepare for some of these division matchups on the schedule?
Very crucial. And like you said, they have 6 of their last 8 games are against the division. And, that's either going to be really good or really bad. I kind of lean on, I actually like it because I think if you're a legit contender, the NFC North has been probably the best division of football right now. If you're a legit contender, that's your chance right there. Go out and you got 6 division games. You go 4-2, you should be in the playoffs or pretty right there and close to that, depending on the other results. But Green Bay looks pretty good. They look like they're probably the 2nd or 3rd best team in the NFC. The Lions, in my opinion, look like the best team in the NFC. I think they're a legit Super Bowl contender. Minnesota's kind of fallen off a little bit with these last 2 games, but they're still good. Brian Flores is really good defensive coordinator, and I'm sure he'll have some things for Caleb Williams in the offense. Looking at, though, I said going into these 3 games, including Washington, you got to find a way to go 2-1. 3-0 would have been perfect. That would have set you up perfect. Now you really have to get these next 2, and they're winnable games. Arizona's a little tough, maybe a little tougher than people might think, but it's a winnable game. Patriots for sure is a winnable game. Then you go in, I believe it's Green Bay. They got at home. That's a game, Bears fans have been circling. The Bears haven't beat the Packers since 2018. So wow. You just want to beat Green Bay. Like that's just kind of the thing. You want a quarterback that can beat Green Bay. So yeah, I mean, they're going to be crucial, these 6 games against the division. And honestly, I think they're going to win these next 2. I think they can beat Seattle. If you do that, puts you right there, 7 wins, 7-ish wins. So you'd have to probably go 3-3 in your division to have a shot. And I think it's be a good test for them. They played the Lions really well. Last year, they really should have swept the Lions. I think you asked Detroit fans, they were relieved that the Bears pretty much gave that game away. They were, the Bears were up 2 scores with like under 2 minutes left and somehow blew that game. And then they pretty much dominated them at Soldier Field. So, they're just tests. In my opinion, they're tests. If you want to be a legit contender, you got to win these games. You got to at least split the division this year.
Yeah, it certainly won't be easy in that division, but they have the defense that can get it done, only giving up 17 points a game right now. And they have the pieces on offense as well. We'll just see if that coaching staff can help them out a little bit. Zack Pearson, everybody from bearreport.com, part of the 24/7 network. Zack, we appreciate you today for your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure.